Guys, it's Maymay and welcome to Stamping 101. Look at all of these stamps. There are so many and there are so many different things, and I know it can be confusing, and I'm going to try to break it down real simple for you. Now here's the thing. This is stamping basics. This is not stamping technique basics. So what I want to cover here are all the questions I get about stamps that have to do with the actual stamp and how to use the stamp. If you're interested in different stamping techniques, what I'm going to do is I will link below some videos of some really cool stamping techniques so you guys can take a look at that. Plus, if there's some other videos I find that I think will be helpful, I'll link those in the description box too. I just really want to stick to the basics of stamping, okay? If you had no stamps or had no idea what to do, by the time this video is over, I want you to know how to go to the store and purchase what you need and be able to use it. So I'm going to move these out of the way and we're going to talk about them one at a time. I am going to start with this guy. This is a sheet of rubber stamps that has never been cut or put on or mounted onto blocks or anything. And I want to show you this one first because I kind of got messed up with this, and I'll tell you how. I ordered this from a website. I was really excited to find it because this corset stamp is so pretty. You probably have a hard time seeing them. But this is basically vintage ladies, and I was so excited. It has a little dress form, and I still love it. But I didn't realize it was in a solid sheet and that I would have to cut them apart and mount them myself. Not a big deal. You can do that. It's no big deal. Just be careful when you're buying things online and read the description really well. This is red rubber stamps that are unmounted, totally unmounted. They have no cling, no nothing for me to be able to use them. It's okay because I can use them, especially if you want to do a background with something like this. You could still use this, just ink this whole sheet up and then run a piece over it and be able to get the designs from it. And I can always mount these myself and they're still usable. But if you're not sure how to do that, be sure you read your descriptions. But this is how a rubber stamp starts its life in something like this. So this is red rubber unmounted stamps. Now these are your traditional woodblock stamps, and I want to show you. You see that it is red rubber, just like I just showed you, and I want you to notice inside here, there's a little gray cushion in there. I'm going to press so you can see. You see how that kind of gives? That is so you can get a good impression of the stamp. If you just had the flat red rubber portion that I showed you earlier, you would have to stamp it on something that would give it some movement so that it can, mold to whatever you're stamping it on. But this allows you to put some pressure on it and get a good crisp image. Now, red rubber stamps do just that. They make beautiful images. I rarely have trouble stamping these. The hardest part for me is usually the unwieldiness of the big wood block, or how they kind of line up. The thing I like about most of these is that you don't have the same opportunity of getting ink onto your block like you do with a clear block, because sometimes they can easily get into your ink pad. With these, because that block is so far away from the pad, you don't get as much opportunity to get that kind of extra. So it's really good if you're not comfortable with using a thinner stamp onto an acrylic block like that. So these are beautiful stamps. I love how they stamp. Let's talk about inking them up. I've got a piece of white paper and I'm just going to use it for this whole tutorial, so we'll just ink it up all over the place. So for now, let's talk about this big guy. Because of the size of this ink pad versus this stamp, I would never go like this. In order to stamp up a big old stamp like this, what I would do is bring my ink pad to it and press the ink pad on top, making sure to get everywhere. Now my tip for putting ink is to overlap and to run over it 2 or 3 times. You may sometimes see people twist the ink. I don't usually twist. I don't see that helps me too much. I like to pat more than twist. I think it's just a technique thing. Alright, and now then I'm going to stamp this guy in the top corner. Now, one thing you'll see here with the woodblock stamp is I have no idea where that's going, except for the fact that I know it's somewhere inside this block. If it were clear, I'd be able to see what I was doing, and that's one reason you like a clear stamp. But I want to show you this image. Look at the detail you get in a woodblock image. That's amazing, isn't it? All that detail. You would have a hard time with a clear stamp getting that kind of image. I mean, these packages have tiny, tiny little etchings inside of there. So if you ever hear someone talk about a deep etched stamp, that means that the rubber is pressed down deep and the image comes up high, so there's a bigger gap between the image and the actual rubber base. That's a deep etched stamp. So that's how this wood block works. Let's look at the smaller one. Now with my smaller stamps like this, I don't mind taking them to the ink pad because I know I can get good coverage that way. But when they're larger, I certainly take the pad to the stamp. Alright, so now I'm all inked up, and we will stamp it. And look at that beautiful image. These are beautiful stamps, but if you were wanting to stamp something in a very specific spot, you couldn't do it with just using a woodblock stamp. You'd have to use a stamp positioner, and I'll put a video below to show you what a stamp positioner is and how to use it, so be sure to check that below. But if you have clear stamps, it's no problem. Let's talk about clear stamps. So these are clear stamps. These are two from my stamp line, and this is one from Recollections. I bring these two out because I want to show you the difference in the product itself. Clear stamps are made in different product, meaning there's a different composition for them. Some of them are made with acrylic, like these. These are made with a clear acrylic, and some are made with a photopolymer, like these. Mine are made with a photopolymer product. I'm going to show you the difference by just showing you the stamp. Check this out. If you've ever purchased a stamp set, and you notice when you pull it off of the package, it's very jiggly, almost like, it feels sort of like silicone. Like if you've ever let silicone dry and then play with it, you can kind of mess with it. I want to show you this. Do you see how this stamp can pull apart like this? I mean, way far apart. That's one of the things people don't like about acrylic stamps. They can get distorted very easily, especially, I'll put this one back, if you're using something like this one, and it has some really fine lines in it. If you were to press this down on your paper too hard, you could get a blurry stamp. We're going to stamp that in a second. Let's look at a photopolymer. Now this is a photopolymer stamp. Can you see the difference? It doesn't pull as easily. This one does pull because I have it, because I used a long one, but it doesn't pull as easily. And they're much firmer. Although they still kind of jiggle, the quality of these, it just feels different. They feel richer and fuller, and they keep their solid shape easier. The reason that is important is when you have something like this one. This is a little candy corn. Let me get it off of here. When you have something like this one that has these fine lines in the middle, you don't want those to collapse on you when you press on them with your board, with your block. You want them to stay full so that you get a good image. So let's stamp a couple and look at them. Now with clear acrylic stamps, what you have to do is you have to mount them to a block. And you'll find these blocks at any craft store. These are acrylic blocks. They also are made of acrylic. I have glitter everywhere from a project earlier. So these acrylic stamps just stick right to this block so you can use them. You don't have to do anything to make them stick. No adhesive, no anything. I get asked that question a good bit, especially when people see my stamps for the first time, because they come in this package and you think, how do I use these stamps? You remove them from the acetate sheet that they come on and you stick them to a block. This is one of my photopolymer stamps, and it just sticks to these blocks so you can use them for inking, for stamping. So I have thick blocks, I have thin blocks, I have really big blocks, and I even have a Fisker stamping tool that has these little cushion pieces that allow you to kind of wiggle the stamp to go where you want it to go. We'll talk about that in a second. When choosing acrylic blocks to go with your clear stamps, the big thing for me, one, is to make sure you have a variety of sizes, so no matter what stamp you have in a set, you can use one of your blocks for it. The other thing is to make sure you're able to control them. The thing I love about these close to my heart stamps is blocks is they have a little indentation on the side here. You can see how my finger kind of sits in, and that allows you to get a good grip on them and press down. Things like this one, which is a Studio G block from Michaels, it doesn't have any indentation. However, it's pretty small, so it's pretty easy to hold. This guy is actually a Martha Stewart block that came with a handle that you could glue onto the top and then have a little more control over it, but that handle wouldn't stay, so I just used the block as I need it. Alright, I'm going to stamp first with this acrylic stamp, and I want to show you what I mean by crisp and not crisp image. When you're stamping with clear stamps that are made of acrylic, the trick is to not press too hard. So you're going to put your image down and you're just going to make sure it gets good impression with the page all the way around. Make sure that everything's touching, but don't press too hard. So this one, well, I didn't wiggle, but you get a pretty good impression. Now I'm going to do it and press harder and show you. See how much wider it is in places and how much thinner it is here? That's how an acrylic stamp gives. It pushes so hard that you get a much deeper, you get more ink off the edges. So when you press and you compress that image in, it can sometimes get blurry versus really crisp. Let me see if I can get a good crisp one. So I'm going to put this one down. I'm not going to press too hard, but I am going to make sure that every inch of the stamp touches by doing a little tiny wiggle move, top and bottom. And that way I get a pretty good impression there. Okay, now let's look at photopolymer. Something about clear stamps you'll want to know too is sometimes they need to be conditioned. I will put a video below that talks about conditioning your acrylic stamps. But sometimes when you get them, if they don't stamp very well, you might need to condition them, and then they should work just fine for you. So this one is one of my photopolymer stamps, and it says Merry Christmas, and I will place it down, and I'm just going to sit it here and kind of press like I did the first time and show you that image. See how much crisper? To me, that's much more crisp than this one that's kind of, the colors are very hard to get even. This, the ink released pretty evenly all the way across. That's the beauty of a photopolymer. Now I'm going to press really hard like I did here and show you. So press. And notice how it looks the same, because this stamp being made of photopolymer doesn't compress and cause the lines to spread out. That's why it looks very similar. That's the difference in photopolymer and acrylic. If you press too hard, those lines are going to compress and cause your ink to smear wider versus just a light touch with the acrylic. Now I want to talk to you about the Fiskars tool. And I'm going to use it with that same Merry Christmas stamp. This Merry Christmas stamp, by the way, is from Santa Stuck. That is on my website. I'll put a link to all my stamps below too. So this Merry Christmas stamp, I will ink it up again. When I'm using my Fiskars stamp press, I usually face it up and bring the ink to it, which is one of the reasons you see all these ink marks, because I just typically do this. It's easier for me. Now, the cool thing about this is you can see your stamp through it, and because of these little feet, you can wiggle it around, and you have a little room if you need to move around. So let's say I wanted it to be right here under this tire. By doing this, I can wiggle it into whatever position I need it to be in. Then just press it in place. And so I can see exactly where I want it to go. If I were using a wood block stamp, I wouldn't be able to do that without that positioner. Okay, so that's this little Fiskars stamp press, they call it. I think Martha Stewart makes one too. Now I want to talk to you about these guys. These are cling mount rubber stamps, and let me show you what's different about them. These guys are actual deep etched rubber stamp, red rubber stamps, but they're on easy mount that has a plastic that helps them to cling to a clear block. So why are these important? Well, here's the deal. Do you see how you can see the basic shaping of this little bird? When you put that onto a clear block, see how that sticks to the clear block, just like your clear ones do. Now we can see basically where we're going to be stamping it. We're still not seeing it like we do with a clear one, but with this one we get a much better idea. So I'm going to ink this one up, and then I will find a spot where I want it, which I'm thinking right here, and stamp. Now the cool thing about these is they are the red rubber. So if you're a fan, let me show you up close. If you're a fan of that red rubber and how you get such a nice deep etching from that, the way to do that with a clear block is to get these cling stamps. I love these guys. I think they're really, really cool and fun to work with. And you can see how it's basically become a wood block stamp because it's the same layers, except you're using your clear blocks for it. The other good thing about these is storage. When you're using these guys, you get the same effect as the red rubber stamp, but you have a good, an easier way to store them than if you had 3 wooden blocks for this one little set. That would be a lot. Now these work the same. They're exactly the same. They just have gray versus the green that I just showed you. And you can see that they have that little cushion inside, and they work just the same. Now let's say you wanted to start stamping and you just didn't know where to start. This is what I would suggest. A good ink, you're going to have to decide what you're using your stamps for so you can pick the ink you want. If you're Copic coloring with them, something like this will work just fine. This is a dye ink, and this works well with Copic colors. If you want something you're going to stamp onto a non-porous surface, you're going to want something more like StazOn that's made for non-porous surfaces, and this is a solvent ink. You might even want something with some color to it. So you can look at stuff like this. This is a close to my heart that comes in all these different colors, and this is also this is a water-based dye ink. So you want to think about what kind of project you're doing in order to buy your ink. A lot of people say, "What's your favorite ink? What's your favorite ink?" I have a lot of favorite inks for a lot of different things. So that's one thing you'll have to learn. You'll have to decide, what kind of project am I doing? So what kind of ink do I need for it? That's the best way to go. So if you were doing Copic coloring, you would need some good ink. And let's say you were doing clear stamps, you'd need a block and a stamp set of your choice. With these 3 items, you can stamp all of these any old way you want to. So stamping itself is not difficult. When it gets more tricky is all the techniques that you can do. And like I said, I'm going to link all those techniques below. I just really wanted to talk to you today about the different types of stamps and how to get started using them. So we talked about woodblock, we talked about clear, we talked about cling mount. So you know that those are typically the kind you're going to see out there. So when it comes to purchasing stamps and deciding which ones to get, I like all stamps. I don't mind them. I use them in all different ways. Do I have a favorite? I really do like the clear ones, not just because I make them that way, but because I like to be able to look through the block and see where I'm going, and I don't have to have a positioner of any sort. So stamping, again, is one of those things you just have to decide which one is it that you want to use. The big thing is to know the difference in the type and what you're going to get from them. And remember, read descriptions. If I had read the description, I don't know if it would have changed my mind about purchasing this one, but had I read the description, I probably wouldn't have purchased it at the time I did, because I had no idea how to mount these myself. If you want to see how to mount a rubber stamp set, I'll put a video for that below too. I think I've seen some really good ones for that. So be sure to check in the description box for some videos on stamping techniques. But now you know, an acrylic block and some clear stamps, some spring mount stamps like this, or some cling mounts like that, or a woodblock stamp, and you know how to get started. So I hope you enjoyed this series, guys. Jane's last one is tomorrow, and it is on sprays. Today's secret letter is N. Now remember, collect the secret letters from all of the previous videos, and on Jane's video on Thursday, you'll get a secret symbol. Be sure to put that symbol with those letters that will create a word, and you'll put that in her comment section of her video on Thursday. And we will be drawing a winner. She will give you the details of that in her last video, okay? So thanks for watching the basic series. I also had somebody ask me if I had one location for all the basic series where you could get them, and I do. I have a playlist that I'll link below. That playlist has all the basic series videos that Jane and I did, and they're in time order based on how we uploaded them. So you can just go right to that little playlist and favorite it or save it, and that way you'll have them all when you need them. Thanks so much for following us along on this series, guys. We really appreciate it, and we will see you in future videos. My next one will be tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.